center, there were brick patios on either side. They wanted to fill it in. And then there was a proposed variance of 12.7 feet for the, from the proposed attached garage of 21.3 feet from the side lot yacht line, and a proposed variance of 4 feet for the proposed stair that are attached to the garage and shown in the diagram.
I'd just like to say thank you to the applicant for listening, and I don't have a problem with this application.
Can you just request that you actually describe these substantive changes? I mean, I see the letter and the plans. Can you just walk through?
Sure. SK 101, it shows the reduced garage showing 3 cars, whereas SK 100 had 4 cars.
And the physical dimensions of the extension are what?
I know that the added GFA is 118 feet, where the maximum is 707 square feet. I have the designer here if you need the exact dimensions of the addition.
You took the variance down from 575 to
On the record, but the number is
118, right?
Can the designer just
sure.
specify what the actual?
Sure. David?
534 to 118.
David Tosher, thank you.
I'm just going to
Swear you in, please, David.
Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
David Tosher, 225A Main Street, Amagansett.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I believe there's a larger version of this small that actually has the dimensions in it. I know you can't read that on this because it's kind of reduced. And I actually don't have those large.
That's okay. Just if you could just say for the record what the dimensions
Yeah,
are.
I think we took off about 10 feet and just lopped it off. Plus, there was a bump out in the front of the original garage, as you can see in SK 100. I removed that as well. So we took away that square footage. And if you look in the elevations, there's also a change in the gable dormer.
Right.
We just smoothed it out. And
Okay, so it's a 10-foot reduction in the garage. I understand. Thank you.
okay.
As presented in the letter, the applicant is also willing to state that the garage space that is proposed to be added would be covenanted to be non-habitable.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any questions more? Anybody from the audience have any? Okay.
Motion to close the hearing.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the continuation of 127 Main Street LLC, 127 Main Street. And just for the record, who's sitting on this? Myself, Mr. McMullen, Mr. Rose, Mr. Barris is not here, and Mr. Diarco. Thank you. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to try and be brief, basically. We're on for a continued hearing. I think I could just summarize the application and respond to any questions that you have. Mr. Carmelli is here with me as well, of course. I did want to draw your attention to some of the pictures we submitted. They tracked our presentation slides last time. They're a helpful way to reconnect with the structures. We're requesting some form of relief to close the permits out. Just as a reminder, we're seeking variances for several of the structures on the property. A variance can be granted if we can demonstrate the benefit to the applicant from the grant of the variance outweighs the detriment to the general health, welfare, and safety of the community from the grant of the requested variance. There are other factors to consider in this inquiry, such as the substantiality of the variance, whether other alternatives can be sought that could be pursued, or the potential for adverse impacts related to the grant of the variance to be considered. In our case, we feel the variance requested does in fact meet these rigorous standards, and our unique and and compelling for the grant by this board. Just to reiterate, the variance we requested, one concerned the installation of an interior shower in one of the two matching plate glass pool houses. It's only in one of them. The structures are transparent and see-through and located hundreds of feet from the main residence on the property. They're incapable of being converted into some form of cottage or even adaptable to this type of use. The applicant could legally construct additional residences on this property as of right based on the comprehensive plan and the village code. Benefit we're seeking here is to have an enclosed shower with the pool house that will serve the pool and tennis in a much more remote application or location on the property than typical. It will make it easier to keep clean and provide much greater utility for the owner and his family than an exterior shower would be. That is essentially it. There are other examples of these that exist in the village. I did submit some of those to the record. None of them exactly fit in the same fact pattern, as this is a pretty unique request. I do think this is such a unique application based on the form and the architecture of the structures and their location relative to the main residence. We think it's unlikely to have any adverse impact on the community at all, or it will not really serve as a guiding precedent for other applications. Second variance we requested was to allow more than one room on an accessory structure, which is the garage. As I demonstrated last time I appeared, this was approved by the ZBA, this board, as a garage/greenhouse. Its unique design was well known to the board. It served as a place to store potted specimen plants and motor vehicles. It's entirely see-through, and there are two additional rooms we are seeking to legalize. One's a 54 square foot closet within the structure. It's a see-through structure. They wanted a place to store unsightly items that you could clearly see from outside. The other one is related to the mechanical space of the building, and that's located on the rear of the property, is only accessible from the rear of the building. There's no air conditioning in this space. In the small accessible room in the rear, it also contains a source of ignition, so from a safety perspective, it did make perfect sense to have this separated from the main space. As I mentioned, there are no air conditioning units that were installed in this. That was actually part of the original approval, but that was foregone by the applicant. It's so hot in the summer that it's basically uninhabitable for any cottage or other type of residential use. I don't think there's any risk that anyone would use this for anything other than its intended purpose as a garage and storage space for plants, as well as a showroom for the cars and motorcycles that are stored in there. It'd be a great place to tinker with them or admire them in this beautiful space. The remaining items are some form of guidance and interpretation of code provision that were raised by the building department. Under the village code, the greenhouse garage is subject to the provision of the code that it shall be accessible by an improved driveway designed and capable for such use for the storage of motor vehicles owned and regularly used on behalf of the owner or tenant of the lot. As we did show, and this is clearly visible, it was designed with a ribbon driveway. That's actually what that's called, a ribbon driveway. I kind of learned that. They are common in many historical structures in East Hampton that I've personally seen, as well as commonplace in Europe, particularly in agricultural areas. The village code doesn't define an approved driveway. We feel this is appropriate historically and aesthetically based on the location of the structure so far from the main residence. We hope the board will agree and provide some guidance as what can be done to comply with this code section. It was suggested at the last hearing, for instance, that we extend the ribbons to the actual structure. We can certainly do that. They were left a little short so that the applicant could put plywood down to move vehicles in and out and clean their wheels, etc. But I think that's a reasonable suggestion. The ribbons could potentially be widened somewhat if the board thought that was something that would make them find this to be accessible. We don't think requiring a paved or stone driveway all the way to the structure, which would be hundreds and hundreds of feet through the middle of this property, is what the intent of the code was, nor is it compatible with the historic district, as well as this use of the structure or the intended use of the structure. I think this would be more a scar onto the landscape here, not a beauty mark if we did that. Second issue that we addressed was demonstrating the door was sufficient to accommodate the cars and motorcycles that are stored there. These are collectible cars, smaller cars. It also demonstrated the existing door width is sufficient to allow the building to be accessible for motor vehicles as required by the village code. In fact, those are the motor vehicles owned and used by the owner in accordance with the village code. In fact, the door width here is identical to the door width on the existing garage on the manager's cottage. That's obviously long predates this, but they're the same width. So some guidance from the board as to interpreting this section might be appropriate to allow this property to qualify for a certificate of occupancy. I've been through the DRB. This is a beautiful project. Everybody agreed. It's particularly striking, and it's being used exactly as it was intended by the owner. It's not visible to any neighboring property or to the public without great efforts that would probably involve some form of trespassing. We're amenable to reasonable accommodations to see this interpreted as an accessible garage under the village code. That's exactly what it was designed to be, and I'm available, or Shahab would be available to answer any questions you might have.
Board members, comments?
I just have one. I think last meeting, we also mentioned a covenant that says that there will not be any cooking facilities or bathroom in that greenhouse as well.
Yes, absolutely would agree to that.
Yeah, I think we have two things going on here. We have the approval of the shower inside the pool house. Okay, so do we want to, we're okay with that? Because it's, we can distinguish it by being pretty far from the main house. And number two, I think that the driveway has to be to the middle door. And I think the driveway has to be approved by the building inspector. And do you have any comments? Joe, do you want to get up to the podium, please? Good morning.
Good morning, Joe Palermo for the village. So just a couple of comments on what Mr. Hammond just discussed. As far as the indoor shower, the code clearly states pool houses, powder room, no indoor shower allowed. The original building permit that was submitted and approved had a powder room inside and an outdoor shower. So that's one point I wanted to make. On the garage, the driveway the definition of a driveway is kind of vague, and the village has accepted ribbon strip or bacon strip, whatever you want to call a driveway, with just the enough 12 inches for the two tire tracks. The original garage that was proposed showed the driveway coming to the front door and a door wide enough to accept the motor vehicle. Now the driveway goes to the side, which that door has a clear width of 6 feet, which in our opinion is not wide enough for motor vehicles of all types. If you go, the village doesn't have a definition or measurement of clear width code for driveway doors, garage doors, and nor does the state building code. But your typical garage door is 8 feet wide. Now, the front door is a little bit wider, but it has clear width of 7.5 feet, which one can argue that you could get different sized motor vehicles in that door of 7.5 feet. But that's in the front. So if there's a driveway that could reach the front door that can accept all types of motor vehicles, I think the building inspector would be okay with that. I think that's pretty much it. I just wanted to make those 2 points. If you have any questions.
I don't. Hear you loud.
Thank you for the explanation.
Hear you loud and clear, too. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so any other comments from the?
Council, is this something that you can address?
I don't know.
I was just going to give context on the doorway and the width.
I think it's best if,
I don't think we're okay with that.
Okay, thank you. A motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the Jewish Center of the Hamptons, 44 Woods Lane. Mr. McMullen's going to share this.
State who's sitting. We have Mr. McMullen, Ms. Fitzsimons, and Mr. Darko.
So as the board knows, we received new presentations, two from Ackerman Partners as well as Jonathan Tarbett. Has everybody had a chance to review those? Yes, okay. What I would ask is if you could keep it brief, as we
To the
have
point.
all seen this already.
I'll be very brief, very brief. Because you asked a very good question at the last hearing, I thought I'd bring you a visual. My visual shows you that there are 50-plus properties in the village that are impacted by the determination you're to make on the interpretation in this hearing. And why is this so important? Because every one of these, in every category, starting with the bed and breakfast, the businesses, the not-for-profits, the schools, the religious institutions, the museums, are all impacted by this interpretation. This represents 50-plus applications for variances when one should not be necessary. And I think you need to give serious consideration in your interpretation in how you characterize, phase, and interpret the statute. The village clearly is not intent on clarifying the language in the statute. You can do that. You have the authority to do that. This policy that the building department is applying here to commercial or non-residential uses or structures in a residential zone is called the Gene Cross policy. It's not supported by the legislation that's intact here. When you look at the inconsistency that we pointed out in the application of this, it demonstrates clearly ambiguity. And based upon the ambiguity rules that apply to the interpretation of municipal legislation, it's intent on you to clarify this language and clarify the application. When you look at the list, the not-for-profits, the LVIS, the library, Guild Hall, the Eleanor Whitmore Center, the East Hampton Tennis Club, the YMCA, the VFW, they all will require some fashion of relief. No one will be exempt. There's either a special permit requirement for the not-for-profits, for the religious institutions, a variance requirement. No one's going to escape by you making the determination we're asking for. So I ask you to give it serious consideration, take time, and if you need more than 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, we'll grant you that extra time. This is not an easy analysis to be done, but I think together with council, you can make the right decision that benefits not only your board's time, but the community at large. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to add anything?
I was just going to say, if you've got any questions, or you want me to summarize my letter, I will, but otherwise,
If you have, as quick as possible, that would be great.
I have nothing to say. Hi, John Tarbett. I have nothing new to add other than what I put in the letter. I was just here in case the board had any questions, or if you wanted me to briefly summarize my letter, but otherwise I have nothing to say.
Does anybody on the board have anything? Then I would ask for a motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second,
second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We'll hand this back over to John McGurk.
Thank you, Jimmy. We have the new hearings of the day, and the first one is Robert J. and Karen M. DeFriest. And
I I can.
Yeah, you can say who's
So
sitting on
who's
it.
sitting on this application today is Mr. McGurk, Mr. McMullen, Mr. Rose, Ms. Fitzsimons, and Mr. Darko. And then I'll read the public hearing notice. Application of Robert J. and Karen M. DeFreeze, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-8-7-8, for an area variance from Chapter 278 zoning to construct a roofed porch. A 3.1-foot variance is requested from Section 278 3A to construct a roofed entry porch 21.9 feet from the front yard lot line, where the required front yard setback is 25 feet. The subject property is 8,304 square feet in area and is located at 81 Mill Hill Lane in Residence District R40. This project is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Good morning.
Morning. Anthony Pasca of Essex, Hefter, Angel, Natalia, and Pasca. I'm here for Robert and Karen DeFreeze at 81 Mill Hill Lane. This notice was read. We are asking for a 3.1-foot setback variance to allow the replacement of a small entry porch with a wider 8 by 28-foot porch. As far as, I mean, I think you all know Mill Hill Lane, and the character of this road, a lot of different houses, all very close to the road. Some are closer to the road than our property, some are slightly further back, some are 2 stories closer to the road. The easiest thing I think to talk about is that there is a direct precedent right next door, which we submitted to the board, the 2006 variance to the Gordons. They were asking for a similar variance, a larger variance, slightly larger at 4 feet for a wider porch. Theirs was 36 feet long compared to ours. And they were,
Mr. Pasca,
yeah.
I mean, this is one of the original houses built on Mill Hill, and it's still in the same form. It's not too big. It fits well on the property. I don't think the board members, I'm not speaking for you, but I don't think anybody has an issue with it unless they speak up, but
No issue.
I think it fits,
great.
well. It fits well, and
I'm not going to waste your time then, if you have no questions of it. Certainly the Gordon variance makes it pretty easy to go, you could almost adopt the same variance for us.
it's well done, so it's not over.
You got it.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any comments on this application? Okay. Motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the Town of East Hampton, 159 Panago.
Sitting on this application, we have Mr. McGurk, Mr. McMullen, Mr. Rose, Ms. Fitzsimons, and Mr. Darko. And what did I put? Read the public hearing notice. Application of the Town of East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-4-4-31 for a special permit in accordance with Section 278-7D to make structural alterations to an existing building and utilize the building for town governmental offices. The property contains approximately 143,748 square feet of land area and is located at 159 Panago Road and is in Residence District R20. This project requires approval of the Design Review Board and is classified as a type 2 action in accordance with SECRA.
Thanks, Gab.
And then
Good morning.
I'm just gonna
Swear you in?
swear you in as well. Please raise your right hand and state your name and address for the record.
Alexander Roman, I live at 7 Brown Meadows Court, Huntington, New York.
Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Okay, from LKMA, the architects, engineers on the project. So this is from the 2007 project of moving the historic structures onto the town hall property to use as offices. So this building, known as the Peach Farm, was one of the properties that was not within that original project scope that was completed within the overall project for one reason or another. It was still moved and put on a new structure and foundation. So now the idea is to expand existing town hall into that building as originally planned in that design from 2007. Our project just varies a little bit because of the deterioration or continued deterioration of the beach farm, that it has not been occupied. We need to rebuild one of the portions, which is called the garden shed. It's a smaller portion of the house to have the structure be more suitable and adequate for the town hall use. That includes ADA widths and accesses into the building, as well as refinishing it for proper use and restoration of the existing historic nature of the project. That's a pretty good summary, I think.
Thank you. Board members?
Looking at this, I really don't have a problem with this. It's placed well on the property. And like you said, to make it usable and user-friendly, ADA compliant, and bring it back to somewhat of its glory, I would have no problem with it.
Yeah.
No problem.
Okay. A motion to call, Joe, you good with this? Yeah. All right. Anybody in the audience? Thank you. Motion to close the hearing? Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the last hearing of the day, Mr. McMullen's going to chair.
Sitting on 15 Jones Road, we have Mr. McMullen, Mr. Rose, Ms. Fitzsimons, and Mr. Durko. And then I'm just going to read the public hearing notice. Application of 15 Jones Road LLC, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 301-12-7-3 for area variances from Chapter 278 zoning and a wetlands permit in accordance with Chapter 163 wetlands to make alterations and construct additions to an existing residence, convert an existing accessory building into an accessory dwelling unit, construct a swimming pool and patio, and install a new sanitary system. A wetlands permit is requested in accordance with the provisions of Section 163-3, and variances are requested from Section 278-3A8 for 103.4 feet, 70 feet, 108.3 feet, 93 feet, 123 feet, and 146 feet to make alterations to an existing residence and construct additions, the nearest being 46.6 feet from wetlands, construct a porch 80 feet from wetlands, construct a swimming pool 41.7 feet from wetlands, construct a patio 57 feet from wetlands, construct fencing 21 feet from wetlands, and to make alterations to an accessory building and convert it into an accessory dwelling unit that is located 3.8 feet from wetlands where the required wetland setbacks are 150 feet. A wetlands permit is requested in accordance with provisions of Section 163-3, and a 45.6-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A8 to construct a sanitary system 154.4 feet from wetlands where a 200-foot setback is required. The wetlands permit is requested in accordance with the provisions of Section 163-3, and a variance is requested from Section 278-3A8 to remove phragmites and to plant vegetation within a wetland and directly adjacent to a wetland where the required wetland setback for landscaping is 125 feet. A 22.2-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A to construct additions to the principal residence 47.8 feet from the front yard lot line where the required front yard setback is 70 feet. A 32.9-foot variance is requested from Section 278-3A4A to construct additions to the principal building to be located 17.1 feet from the side yard lot line where the required side yard setback is 50 feet. The subject property is 93,532 square feet in area and is located at 15 Jones Road in Residence District R160 and FEMA flood zones AEL11 and Zone X. This project is classified as a Type 2 action in accordance with SECRA and requires a wetlands permit from the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
Thank you. Morning, Trevor.
Morning, members. Trevor Darrell, Fleming and Darrell PLLC on behalf of the applicant. And if Billy's home watching, I think he's in bed with the flu, but I do appreciate the amount of effort he put into preparing that hearing notice for the board. It does have a lot of components. And as Gabby just said, the applicant today is seeking relief from the code for improvements where a property that is restricted by a large wetlands that runs along two of its borders. So it runs on the western and the northerly border. The additions and alterations are all within wetland setbacks, and the need to seek relief is triggered by that for any improvements that we would be seeking on this property. And I think this application can be bifurcated into basically two different applications. The first is, I think, non-controversial, and that's the proposed remedy and removal of the Phragmites. I don't think there's any opposition to the Phragmite removal. It's an invasive species, and this board and the DEC and the East Hampton trustees who are not part of this application because we're not in the pond itself, but have always, or in past experiences, have approved the removal of the Phragmites. And as Ms. McKay just put on the record, we do need New York State DEC approval, which we have obtained previously prior to coming to this board. We do have that approval for the Phragmite removal. That plan, which is part of this application as well, is to hand cut that Phragmite and remove it from site, discarding of it elsewhere. There's no application for dredging and or digging of the Phragmites is to be hand cut. The concept being that when you hand cut, you aren't sort of disturbing the natural vegetation that's growing, even though it's being sort of limited in its growth with the existence of the Phragmites. The removal of the Phragmites themselves will allow the native species to sort of regrow, which is what we're actually seeing on the lily pond. For those frags that were cut down, you're starting to see some of the natural grasses and species grow back. Part of our application, which the board has in its file, is a vegetation plan as well, which the applicant is proposing a native species buffer that would sit between the majority of the wetlands area and the yard area of the house. That would all be native species, which would then sort of be a buffer, right? But also limit the invasiveness of any, human interactivity in that wetlands area. It would naturally act to keep people on the lawn as opposed to walking into that area and trampling down what native species are regrowing there. The second then part of this application has to do with the structures on the property. And all of these structures that sit there today are within wetlands jurisdiction.
I think just questions regarding the buffer and the Phragmites removal?
Sure.
Or before we go into the structural aspect? So can you just review what the revegetation plan is for the, in the wake of the Phragmites removal?
Yes. So we have it called out on the SASCUS survey. I think it's probably the easiest way without I have the plantings plan as well. I can go through that, but it's basically calling for a 30-foot wide buffer that runs from the northern property line and sort of meanders down to the southern property line, mirroring the wetlands flagging.
But just go to the nature of the planting.
Oh, sure. So the plan is to install,
There are a lot of materials that we have on this from
sure, yeah.
over the course of.
So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Call out what it is that we're looking at.
Or mispronounce them, but Aronia abdifolia is red, common name is red chokeberry, right? We have the Cornus ammona, which is silky dogwood. We have Hibiscus moschetos, which is swamp rose mallow. We have Myerca pennsylvania, which is northern bayberry. And then we have Virginia rose.
And this is what's going in the buffer area.
Correct. Those are the plantings to be planted, and they're all sort of approved native species that are sort of low-lying but would survive in that area.
And has Billy seen this?
Yes.
He has.
Yeah, this was part of the original submission.
So that's what's being planted in the buffer area, and in the wetlands area to
the west of that.
West of it. That's where Phragmites are being cut down, and then
we hope natural comes back.
Letting the natural stuff that's still there grow.
Okay, what is, this is a question perhaps to the village planner. What are the natural plants that are coming back, and what's our experience in this? Trevor, you
Sure,
may not
yeah, no, so,
answer this,
yeah,
but there, you know,
there's some
there was
switch
massive
grasses and-
clearing of the Phragmites around Lily Pond a year or so ago that we approved, and still waiting to see stuff come back, and what is it that gets us?
Sure, so
Question. I'm not sure. Yeah, this is a question for the record. I know Billy's not here today, but it would be useful to understand.
Billy's not here, so I would defer to him because he and I have walked those properties. But yeah, so there's switch grasses and there's bayberries that are slowly making their comeback. But that Phragmites has been growing in and around that area for as long as I can recall. So
I
yeah,
can recall.
you know the area well.
I can recall longer
Yeah.
than you, and that's the question is
So-
what is our long-term expectation for what's going to happen in the areas where Phragmites are removed and
Right, so yes, it's
the
basically-
native species that no one's ever seen, populate this area, what's it going to be and what's it going to look like?
So they are slowly starting to come back as you see them in there. But so switchgrasses and bayberries are the two that I've seen. But Billy could speak to
Okay, this is
more
a
of that.
question
But yes,
for
yeah,
the record. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay.
it's going to be a slow process. That's why the DEC permit is 5 years that we have to cut it to keep maintaining it, and then they're going to reevaluate from there. Any other questions on the Phragmite component? So turning to the second component, the structures of the application. So the setback variances for the existing and proposed new structures. The wetland setbacks, the applicant has several variances as were outlined. There are several in number, but majority of them are based on just the natural location of the existing wetlands and the existing structures. So with regards to the proposed improvements on the accessory structure, that structure is proposed to be renovated in kind as interior renovations. That existing structure, when we initially had discussed it, and I've had many meetings with Mr. Hayjack on this property, the original thought, and on one of the original surveys that you saw, was to move that structure forward, landward, towards Jones Road. But as we looked into it, the wetlands runs along that same boundary line, so moving it forward towards Jones Road didn't alleviate the wetlands problem. All it did was cause more disturbance to the property in and around the wetlands. So the decision was to leave it in place and just make it FEMA compliant. So there'll be no mechanicals on the first floor, everything will be on the second floor, it's all storage on the first floor. There is an existing powder room on the C of O for that outlying structure. This plan, as you saw in the septic plan, calls to remove that existing septic where we don't know really where it goes, and have it tied into a new IA system, which would then obviously capture any nitrogen running into the wetlands and or the groundwater in this area. So we would be upgrading that system. That IA system is going to be for the whole property, for the house as well as the outbuilding. So the whole property will be contained in a new nitrogen reducing system. As you turn to the main house, as stated previously, the proximity to the existing house and the wetlands necessitates the need for the variances. The additions that are proposed mostly are proposed to be going over existing patios. For those of you who went to the property, on the rear of the property, there are existing patios. So we're proposing to build over those existing patios. There's one area on the front side of the house that is a bump out, but it's more filling in space where the existing house exists, squaring it off, but not moving the house any closer to the wetlands. The proposed garage is proposed, and we did see the letter from the neighbor that came into the file. As the house sits well, I take a step back. When initially describing or having conversations with the applicant on redevelopment of this property, some builders said, tear it down, start new. And the applicant really wanted to keep with the historic, and the look of this property and the character of this house. So the ultimate plan is what you see before you, which is to take the existing structure and use it as the starting and focal point and work from there, just to add a few items, which would be sort of, some habitable space as well as a usable garage. For those of you who walk the property, the outbuilding that I just discussed, which is, proposed to be the ADU, which is called the garage on the Saska survey, doesn't actually have a garage door upon which you could put a garage or a vehicle in it. So we're removing that aspect of it, and that way you're removing the vehicles in the driveway from the wetlands as well, proposing the garage to be landward closer to Jones Road, but the only way to do it without encroaching on the wetlands is to go towards the side yard and the front yard, which then triggers those variance requests, for which some concern was raised. And I would submit that we looked at every way to try to squeeze in a garage that wouldn't require going towards the side yard, but it doesn't really fit anywhere else. And we've tried to keep it as low as possible because there is existing hedgerow on the neighbor to the south's property, which is pretty substantial for those who went to the property. And then the applicant also has a hornbeam hedge, which is also substantial. So the two hedges together are double wide and also approximately 20 feet tall as they sit there. And the peak of the garage as proposed is capped at 23 feet from natural grade. It would be 20 feet from the foundation, which is proposed to be a slab with mechanicals above to become FEMA compliant. And so the pool, which this board had previously approved the pool for the prior owner, the proposed pool here is slightly smaller and slightly more landward of the original proposed pool. And I would just, go through the standards briefly for the board, which is whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood. And the answer is no. The applicant is trying hard to keep very much within the character of the neighborhood. In fact, like I said, several builders recommended that the house be torn down and start new, but the applicant appreciates the charm and character of the existing residents and is proposing the additions to run in conformity with the character of the neighborhood. Whether the benefits sought by the applicant can be achieved by some other method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than an area variance, the answer is no. While we wish we could seek improvements or renovations on this property, there's no place where we could put a structure that wouldn't trigger the necessity for variances. The location of the wetlands is in proximity to the premises necessitates the request and dictates where we're proposing the improvements. Are the requested variances substantial? And our answer to this is also no. The applicant is seeking the least amount of variances and relief possible to obtain the results which the benefit the applicant, which far outweighs any detriment to the neighborhood or any neighboring properties. The proposed changes have taken into account the wetlands location and its trail up the northerly and westerly boundary lines, thereby pushing the applicant easterly and southerly. And while the one request for the location of the garage at 17.1 feet by itself may be seen as substantial, but given the totality of the application, that one component is a necessity and part of the overall limitations on the parcel and not substantial in the totality. Will the proposed variance have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions of the neighborhood or district? Again, our answer is no. It's our position that just the opposite is true, right? The applicant is wholly developing the property from start to finish with the focus on improving the quality of the environment, from improving the health of the wetlands by cutting the phragmite and removing it off property, to installing native species to act as a buffer from runoff and to capture. The proposed improvement to the structures will have leaders and gutters that with dry wells that will capture any rainwater runoff. And the upgraded septic system for the property as a whole would reduce the nitrogen that would be going into the wetlands or water. And additionally, the structures will also now become FEMA compliant throughout, which then, if God forbid we have a catastrophic storm, would reduce any damage that would come to the environment based on the improvements to the structures. And lastly, as the alleged difficulty self-created, I know this one is, I would submit to you both yes and no. So the applicant is seeking to make alterations and additions. So yes, they don't have to make improvements, but any improvements to this property would trigger or necessitate relief from this board anywhere where they were to make any alterations or repairs. So that is not a self-created hardship. That is just by the proximity of the wetlands. Happy to. Any questions?
Any board members have any questions?
I have a lot of questions. I was going to wait.
Still thinking.
Okay. Why don't you start then, Joe?
So can you show the existing elevation from Jones Road? I see the renderings of the.
Yep.
Doesn't have the existing, but you can see the existing elevation terminates here at the existing chimney. So,
So, which goes to, let me start by saying,
Sure.
This is obviously a lot, given its size, that is constrained as a result of the wetlands and the setbacks working together. So as we had said, when we have seen previous applications for this site, and it was one of the reasons why I expressed concern when we saw an initial application from the previous owner in anticipation of sale. Look, we're going to see a revision when the time comes. Why are we spending time on an application that is going to be different from what we're ultimately going to see? So that there are conditions on this property that warrant consideration that one might not otherwise give to a property of this size is clear as a result of the wetlands. But there are a bunch of considerations that, so the lot, the side yard, I'm most concerned about the garage.
Yep,
issue,
understood.
and I think the neighbors' concerns are legitimate, so let's spend some time on that.
Absolutely.
The overall site is how many acres, including all the,
It's 93,000 square feet.
so it's about a 2-acre site. Just over 2 acres.
Yeah. So we're not seeking any GFA relief.
No, I understand, but effectively, and what portion of those 2 acres are covered by wetlands? My guess, right,
I would say
I think.
slightly over half.
Just want to get,
Yeah.
I can do that, right. It's about half. So we're talking about effectively a 1-acre site in terms of its developable capacity, leaving aside the setbacks from the wetlands, but knowing the wetlands can't be touched, it's a 1-acre development site constrained by the setback regulations.
Correct.
And the difference between, and sorry, I would be asking Billy some of these questions, but in the absence of Billy, I don't want, Billy can stand in for him and he'll correct you if you're wrong. So the setback regulations, not leave the wetlands aside for a second. I'm sorry to.
That's okay.
So I think this is significant. The setback regulations for a 2-acre site
Or larger.
are what?
So the setback regulations from the side yard and the front yard are 50 feet.
Right, and if it were a 1-acre site, the setback regulations would be what?
40.
40 feet. The point is, there is a difference between, recognizing that you really have, given the constraints of this site, a 1-acre development site as opposed to a 2-acre development site in terms of yes.
The amount of relief would be less if we were.
Right, so it's but still, the intrusion into the side yard setback for the garage is substantial, even taking into account the treating it as a 1 acre site as opposed to, so I'm just going to your point about the degree of variance being sought, whether it's substantial or not. I think the garage is extremely substantial in terms of its setback variance being sought. And what's the dimension, what's the width dimension of the whole main house property, including garage now? I just think it creates a very extensive presence across the Jones Road.
Sure.
Front.
There's an existing structure there, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's why I
There's a
asked for
shed
the
there,
existing,
right,
that's why I asked for the existing elevation. That's the,
But there is a second structure. Where the garage sits now, there's an existing structure.
There's a shed there now.
the
Yes.
shed,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying, show the, you don't have a,
I don't have that in the, I have it in the,
I mean, you can sort of see
no, I
right here.
it's 100.
The proposed is 144
It's
feet
a
wide.
144-foot wide continual structure, which is it's a substantial presence across the Jones Road front. I know there are structures that are there now. I think what's being, and this is in response to the neighbors, I think the neighbor has a legitimate point about what's being positioned there on the south portion. That is the most substantial intrusion. I think it's hard to indicate that that's not a substantial variance that does have an impact on the character of the area. Because there's also, you can see through now from Jones Road back to Lily Pond through that area now.
it's not really, there's a shed there and there's a fence and there's trees, yeah.
No,
Shrub, yeah, no, you went.
I went by
Yeah.
half and, I don't know.
So
hour and a half
to your point, so we did actually, the applicant spoke to the neighbor to the south, and we didn't have a lot of time to respond to his communication. I guess he got it when he received the letter, but the applicant did reach out and speak to him directly as well to try to see if there was anything that we could do to alleviate some of the concerns. I would note that, because in his letter, he mentioned, the view from his house, which, quick math, he's at 135 feet from the property line plus the 17 feet, so he's, almost 150 feet away. And when you're looking from that angle, the hedgerow sits at least 20 feet high, so you wouldn't see the garage component. His view of the existing house would still remain because the existing house isn't proposed to change. That's still that 3-story house that sits there. And this, the proposed addition is sort of Jones Road side of the main structure. So as you're looking at it, it's easterly on the side of the lot, which is why, we're pushing towards the southerly boundary line. But to your point, I understand what Mr. Rose is saying, and that we're trying to see that. I don't think it'll be visible from the neighbor's parcel when it's completed and when it's landscaped. There's no windows facing that side. It's going to be shingled and it will blend in once those weather as well. But I do, talk to the applicant about this since we didn't have a lot of time, but if we wanted additional plantings, we would be happy to include that as well to help screen out any proposed visual impact on the neighbor.
And this location, heading into the southern side of the existing structure, is a product of the wetlands on the north side of the structure too. Because if you did on the north side, you'd be closer to the wetlands.
Correct. It was, yeah, that's.
I noticed that it does go over the accessory setback as well. Is there a possibility that you could maybe revise these drawings so at least it clears the accessory structure setback, I think, which is 20 feet? That's 3 feet or
Yeah,
so.
I agree with that.
I mean, they're kind of stuck with no
Oh,
better place to go.
So let me ask some more questions before we get into possible possible solutions or
Yeah.
ways of addressing the concerns.
Sure.
Is the neighbor here?
I don't know.
Is there going to be a comment from, but let me just ask questions.
I just want to say, I was asked to represent them, I was just asked to represent them, I can talk a little bit about it, but I was hoping you might adjourn.
I think we're probably going to leave the record.
Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't opened it up to the, but we,
Right, I'm just
instead of
asking.
anticipating what the neighbor's saying, we maybe
Right.
hear from.
No, I want to ask the questions. I think just have some substantive
Sure.
questions. Now I'm trying to gain my train of thought. But it's just,
Questions? You still have questions?
so it goes, well, I think the point is, if the desire is, and a couple, sorry, I know what the questions were. Thank you. Again, okay, you can standing in your capacity as
Village planner, yeah.
as hypothetical village planner. What are the, assuming a 1 acre property or two, what are the accessory allowances there in terms of structures on the site?
So I don't know off the top of my head because we would be over no matter what because of the existing accessory structure is there, right? So
you have
I can't have an accessory.
1 + 1 is that's,
Yes.
that was the answer I was anticipating and
So-
my understanding, but I just want to make sure. So
We need to have it attached to the house.
you're attaching it because it otherwise would be an additional variance being sought for an additional structure.
Trying to avoid.
Residential problematic.
Correct. So I've tried to really keep this as succinct as possible to keep just the application to the variances to get the outcome.
And that's why it's not connected. So what's being sought is a garage that's attached but not connected, which is required, one of the objections from the building inspector was that it wasn't connected.
If it's not connected.
It's attached, but it's not connected by a passageway, or it is?
No, it is currently, it's proposed to be, yes. It's got fire door, but it's connected internally, right? So it's all,
Which is as a way of, okay, of
so we don't
meeting the
become an accessory structure.
accessory structure. Thank you. Understood, I got it. I'm not, I wasn't asking it clearly, but I understand the.
Yeah, so that, we're trying to avoid that additional GFA, accessory GFA variance, which I know this board is very remiss to grant because it does open up a lot of potential issues down the road.
I have no more questions for the applicant at this point, but I think it would be good to hear from any other.
Okay. Abigail, do you have anything you'd like to ask?
No.
No, that's it, no.
I would ask if there's anybody in the audience that would like to.
Thank you. My name's Andrew Goldstein, Ackerman Partners. We've been asked to represent the applicant. We really haven't had time to study it, though I do have a couple of comments that I'd ask you to consider. I was hoping that you keep the record open and at least for more written submissions, but even to have the applicant, the neighbors appear if they choose to, because they're out of the country. I thought very clever about the 1 acre development, and I think that you've gone through every possible requirement for 1 acres that they might accept gross floor area. And on gross floor area, I guess they're getting the benefit of having 2 acres. And then you should, and it is that gross floor area that is in some ways driving this garage, there's this setback variance, because there's a pretty substantial wing between the house, the old house, and the garage. And the rooms are not small. And so if those could be tailored, cut down in size, and possibly even have a 1-car garage as opposed to a 2-car garage, you'd have a more meaningful setback for the neighbor. And even analogizing it to 1 acre, the variance is still 50%. So it is substantial. The remedy of plantings basically is that's what we always say, put plantings up. But the fact is, so now the applicant will have a 20-foot wall.
Can I just interrupt for 1 second? So you're speaking hypothetically on behalf of your potential client?
No, we've been engaged, but I haven't,
Okay,
we've just been
I
engaged.
understand. Can I suggest that we, Mr. Chair, that we keep the record open and that I think there are substantial issues here that may well be able to be sorted out, but we're not gonna do it, I think, at this meeting, and they involve the configuration of the garage. That there, and I don't mean to
Cut me off, but that's all right.
Well, I do mean to cut you off, because we go into a whole long litany that we're going to hear presumably something more in terms of a submission. I guess I think there are potential solutions. That there is a situation that may well warrant a variance, I think is clear given the constraints of the site. What the degree of those variances are and the extent to which there might be design solutions that can address some of the concerns, I think is something that might take, and given the scale of what's being sought here, might take a little bit of time.
As well as Trevor saying that they have reached out to the neighbor, but haven't been able to really connect yet to have a meaningful discussion. So I think the intent would be to keep the hearing open till next month's meeting. Again, that's on March 6th.
No, March 13th now.
It's on March 6th.
It's March 6th.
It was just rescheduled.
It was rescheduled, oh, back, okay, thank you. I'll be here, whatever.
That would be, I think, the best course of action at the moment, because there are some other questions that need to be answered as well. Is there anyone else in the audience that'd like to say something? In that case, I would ask for a motion to keep the hearing open till next.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Trevor.
We'll close
The
the,
agenda is to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
I think.
Pardon me, did we adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear it into the microphone. My apologies. Thank you.